Hey, everybody. Uh, Welcome back to week 4 of the Met Opera's Worldwide Global Summer Camp. I'm so pleased to be with you today. My name is Annalisa. Camp Counselor Annalisa works too. Whatever you want to call me is fine. I'm going to be working with you today on how the opera came from one of William Shakespeare's most famous plays, Romeo and Juliet. I'm a Shakespearean actress. I've been working doing Shakespeare for over 30 years, both here in New York City and around the country. And it is one of the things in the world I love most. I love Shakespeare. I fell in love with him when I was maybe in 3rd grade. And my whole life, I wanted to do Shakespeare. And here we are. So I'm so happy to share one of my favorite playwrights with you today. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started, just so that you know what to expect and how you can best participate in what we have going on today. We're going to be asking you to participate in some polls and some other response activities via menti.com. So, hey, hi from New Delhi. Welcome. Wow, it's late there, right? Get your Menti ready to go. We're going to pop the codes up for you and you'll be able to go in and respond to things. And then we'll all take that information that you share with us and that will contribute to the activity that we're going to do today. I also wanted to let you know that if you haven't had a chance to go into the Google Drive to see the classroom materials, there are 2 worksheets that we're going to use in the last half of today's session. So if you haven't printed them out yet, or if you've only printed out one, you've got plenty of time to go in and grab them while we're doing the first part of our workshop today. So you can grab the Romeo and Juliet aria worksheet. And hi, Danielle. And the Romeo and Juliet aria worksheet number 2. And somebody's from Canada. Hi, Lynn. Go ahead and grab those if you want to. If you don't have the ability to print, that's fine. Just a piece of paper and something to write with, and we will talk you through it. This is very low tech. It's all going to come from your heart and your head. So I think that's all the setup that we need. So now it is time to get started. So my question for you is, are ya ready to love? Because one of the big things that we talk about when we talk about Romeo and Juliet is love. They were so in love with each other. So we are going to talk about the universality of the star-crossed lovers theme, which is an ancient story that goes back literally thousands of years. And there are stories from all countries, all cultures have this as part of their story history. We're going to learn how a monologue becomes an aria and how Shakespeare is so well suited to be adapted to something musical. We're going to understand what the significance is of a monologue and an aria, why we have them, why they're important. And the piece that we're really excited about in the last half of today, we are going to examine the elements of monologues and arias, and then we're going to create our own. And yes, you can. You can do this. So let's go ahead and get started with our PowerPoint presentation. Nope, that's not right. Is that true? We're not going to start with PowerPoint. We're going to start with a Menti. So Dan, if you could bring up our first Menti, please. And what we wanted, some of you guys have already filled this out. This is great, but keep on filling out if you haven't yet. We'll give you a couple of seconds. I wanted to know what country or state. That's great. I love seeing California. Wow, we have Brazil. We've got USA, but I'm Korean. Hey, I'm USA, but I'm Swedish. I'm half Swedish, so yay, Sweden too. We have Egypt, Argentina, Ireland, the Ukraine, Germany, Kenya, Spain, India, Brazil. Very excited. Welcome, everybody. I wanted to show you all where we're all from here because this is wow, more coming in. London, France, wow, China, Costa Rica, lots of different states in the U.S. Amazing. Look at this. You can all see this as everybody's filling this out. This is wonderful. Hi, Kairit from Estonia. I hope I pronounced your name right. Vikram from India. Wow. Yes, this is wonderful. These stories that are universal, belong to all of us all over the world. And that's why I wanted to share with you today where we're all coming from, because the roots of this story go way, way back, thousands of years. And we're going to look at how it developed and how it became what we know it as today, Romeo and Juliet, or the opera Romeo y Julieta. Hello, Maria in Mexico. Hola. Um, Great. So these star-crossed lovers, what that means is that they're people who love each other, but they're somehow separated from each other, or they're not able to love each other. And there's many, many reasons why someone might be separated from someone they love. And we're going to ask you to go into the next Menti, which is share with us, if you can, a reason that you've ever been separated from someone you love. And I see, again, some of you guys have already put your responses in, but go ahead and check out that next Menti. And while you're doing that, I'll share with you, I've been separated many, many times from people I love for happy reasons and sad reasons. My family moved a lot when I was little, so I was separated from friends a lot of the times that way, or I changed schools a lot. And like I said, I'm part Swedish, so all of my mother's family lives in Sweden. I have like 40 cousins over there, and I love them so much, but I only get to see them maybe once every 3 years, if not more. So I'm separated because of families moving. And, you know, I had a really good friend a few years ago that I used to see almost every single day. And then she moved away to a different state and she got married. And you know, I don't see her anymore. And so sometimes life changes happen and things like that. So there's lots of different reasons. Like I said, some happy, some sad, where you just don't see people anymore. And let's see what we have here today. We have 32 people said that, you know, they live far away from somebody. 19 people said that they moved or that their loved one moved. 16 people said they changed schools. That one can be really, really hard. Went away for the summer. We had a fight. Yeah, I've been there, definitely. And then, pandemic. Yes. I'm almost everybody, if not everybody, has somehow been separated from someone they love during this year. It's been a real interesting time for everybody, but it's a universal experience, just like the story of the star-crossed lovers. Let's see, going to middle school soon. Everybody in my class is going to a different school than me. That is so hard. But you know what? You're going to be great. You are going to be fantastic because you are resilient. And I know you're an artist because you're on here. And you know what artists are great at? Artists are great at being creative and adapting. And those two skills are going to serve you wherever you go in life. So I wish you the best of luck in your new middle school. So yes, we've been separated with people from people that we love throughout this whole pandemic, just as Romeo and Juliet were separated from each other because their parents had been fighting for a very, very long time, generations, and they just hated each other because they'd been taught to hate each other. But somehow, when Romeo and Juliet met, all of that fell away. In fact, they didn't even know who each other were at first. They didn't know that their families were enemies until after the fact. All of those labels, all of those names went away and they just saw the person. And that's what's important. And that's how they fell in love. But they were separated. Now, we may not all have had a boyfriend or a girlfriend, but we have all experienced some sort of separation from a loved one. So I'm glad we brought up the pandemic today. Thanks, you guys, because that's something that we're all experiencing. So now that we know reasons why you may have been separated from someone you love, let's pop to the next Menti and let's talk about some specific people that you've been missing. Who have you especially been missing this year? While you guys are filling that out, I'll tell you that I have two friends who are relatively new, about 2 years. Our friendship is about 2 years old, and we met actually working on a Shakespeare play called Twelfth Night. And we had to sing in the show, and I had to learn to play an instrument. And I fell in love with the instrument and fell in love with one friend whose name is Severin. And we started playing music together, and we started a band. And then we had a third person who joined us, and we've been playing in a band together for 2 years, and March came around. We had all these gigs lined up, and then boom, they shut New York City down. And these two people, Joanna and Severin, are the most dear people to my heart. They're my best friends. And we can't see each other. We can't sing together. And that is so sad for us. And we're just waiting for the time when we can all be healthy and well and safe and go back and be together and hug each other and sing each other. So those are the people that I've especially been missing. Oh, Fawn, I'm so sorry you miss your cousin. I get that. I've got cousins in Arkansas, which is far away from New York City, and in Sweden. And I love my cousins. Cousins are like extra brothers and sisters. My dad is in another state. Christina, that's really tough. Wow. I hope you get to see him soon. Let's see who else we've been missing recently. Wow, those are tiny little guys. I'm going to have to lean really close to the screen there. Let's see. 61. Best friend, I see. Best friend. That's a big one. Yep. Because I miss my uncle. I'm so sorry, Sage. Yeah, that's hard. It's really hard to be separated from people. And I'm really sad that some of you are missing people that are important to you. Oh, Eliana, your best friend. But I love that puppy too. What a cutie. Daniel, Montoya, your grandmas. It is so sad to be separated from people we love. But I will tell you that this is actually going to be something that we are going to use in our work today. And I'm super excited about that. So now that we've talked about reasons that we're separated and who is someone special that we're separated from, let's think about the things that we miss most about that loved one. So now we'll think specifically about just, one person. What is it that you miss most about them? And I think this is our next mentee. Sorry, Dan, I should have said so. So the next mentee is, what is the thing you miss most about your loved one? It could be an activity that you like to do together. Your life was more fun with them, sharing love, being with them, talking. They're funny and nice, their hugs and smiles. Yeah, missing their hugs, everything. Get it. Could you do the light for me? Thank you. Their company. They were happy. Football. Is that American football or is that European football? Either way, it's sad to miss out on your teams and your sports, messing around, hugs, sleepovers, pancakes. Oh, goofing around, playing outside. Bake and sing show tunes. That sounds so much fun. Your grandma spoils you. Okay. Oh, gone to Six Flags. Wow. Play guns, Nerf guns, eating together, right? Eating, that's like something that you do with people you really love. Sharing a meal together is super special. American football, basketball games, fun things. Oh my goodness. Wow. Somebody's loved one is all the way over in Italy. Okay, thank you guys for sharing all that. We're going to use all these things that you're sharing with me right now. We are going to use those later for our activity. So all the work you're doing right now is actually going to pay off even more later. Right now, we're building relationships and sharing, and we're seeing the universality of feelings that we have. I mean, there's some real common threads here, the things that we miss about our loved ones. So we're going to move to our next mentee now. And this one is about things that describe your loved one. And you can do more than one, but let's build some qualities that you miss about your loved one. Yeah, some words to describe the person I'm missing. Some words for my lovely bandmates that I'm missing. They are magic, and they are so fun. And they are talented, and they are generous, and they are loving. And a word we use, it's very silly, but a word we use to describe ourselves sometimes is buttery, which maybe I'll explain that later. It's very silly. It's an inside joke, but buttery is definitely a word for us that we use a lot. Look at all these wonderful words. So the thing about a word cloud that I really like is what it automatically does is it shows the word that's largest in a word cloud is the one that most people share. So when you see something pop up really big, like funny, that's the one that most people can identify with. And then like the next one is kind, loving. Then I see fun, nice, happy. So yeah, these are the things that you would miss about somebody that you love. And I bet they miss those things about you too. Wow, look at all those great words. Cute, amazing. Okay. Yeah, because you're going to use those words when you write your, oh my gosh, it's joke o'clock. And I know you guys have been doing this. So it's joke o'clock. Yay. I love it. I think it's hilarious. So let's see what we have for our joke this time. From Fairly in New York City. Hi, Fairly. What do you call ice wrapped in a tortilla? I got to think about this one. I don't know. I don't think I'd ever wrap ice in a tortilla. I don't know, Joker Club. Oh, no. A burrito. Okay. Very funny. Thank you for that. Oh, Nova from Houston, Texas. What do you call a trembling fruit playwright? Trembling fruit playwright. Nova, I give up. I have no idea. Oh my God. Shakespeare. Perfect. And that's right on theme. Well done. Thank you, you guys, for those jokes. Keep them coming. Those are great. So we'll jump back in and go into our mentee. We've talked about who we've been missing, where they're at, where we are, why we might be separated. And we just threw up a bunch of words that showed the things that we miss, the qualities and the people that we miss. Some words that describe them. Now, we're going to go to our next mentee. And for this one, I want you to think about a special activity that you like to do with the person that you're missing. And you probably already realized this, but for me, ooh, look at this. All of these good things up already. Cuddling, cooking, petting, and playing. It sounds like somebody misses their pet. Baking and cooking, playing games, singing. Yes, I'm right there with you. I miss singing. I see sing up there again. What else do we have here? Let's see. Does it scroll? Are there more? Yeah, here it goes. Playing at Nerf guns, goofing around, playing in the sprinklers, playing with my little brother. Oh, that's so nice. Weirdly, doing your homework with her. Isn't that funny how sometimes things that you don't appreciate when you have to do them, suddenly you realize when you don't have them, you really miss them and value them? That's a great life lesson right there. So yes, all these wonderful things, talking, writing, playing, that's wonderful. That's a special activity. So hold that one in your heart because that might be something that you can incorporate into your aria later today. So now, let's get really specific. That's a type of thing that you like to do with your loved one. But our next mentee is going to ask you to get really specific and share a really beloved memory that you have. It can be from a long time ago, or it can be from just right before everybody got separated by COVID. So whatever memory is most wonderful for you. And this one will take a little time as you're writing. For me, you'd think maybe being with my bandmates, it might be performance that I miss the most, but honestly, it isn't. Rehearsing is super, super special. There's something about the process of working on something that's really joyous. But the thing I actually miss the very most is the getting ready together. The preparation, like right before we go on a show where we help each other get dressed and we share a lipstick, or maybe we trade shoes or something like that. So lots of silly things, but it's just joyous and fun and simple. And look at all these wonderful things. Oh, horseback riding in the woods. That's great imagery. Eating sushi with grandma and grandpa. I love that. Jumping on him when I was younger, playing ball with my dog, going to the aquarium. Heritage, getting a sugar rush and going crazy. What a great, specific, active idea that is. got super dirty because I love this. I see some storytelling that's starting to happen in here. It's a lot of these have, lots of words or even a couple of sentences. And that's great because we're going to start with small words and ideas, and we're going to expand them into larger sentences and larger ideas. And then we're going to craft those sentences to make them seem more like a monologue or a song. So look at all these things: meeting until kindergarten and staying up with only 3 hours of sleep and ice cream. Oh, this is great, you guys. You've already done so much of the work that you're going to need to do today to get started. This is wonderful. So we've got a favorite memory. We've got a favorite person that we're missing. And now we're going to go to the next Menti and talk about a place that's special to you. Because when you tell a story, you usually start with something like, a fairy tale would start with, once upon a time, there was a girl and she lived in a beautiful forest on the outskirts of a kingdom. You might start with something like that. So when you start to create the story that you're going to base your aria on, you might want to start with setting your stage. And that might involve a place that you love. So our next Menti is name a place that is special to you and the person that you're missing. Okay, we have lots of countries. You can also put in things like, for me, there's a special lawn in Central Park in New York City. And it's where I first met both of my bandmates, even though I didn't meet them at the same time. And it's a place that we've gone since to rehearse. We've performed there. We've had birthday parties there. It's a special place. It's like our heart home. So what do we have here? School, snowbird, home, garden, all these wonderful ideas. Oh, this is great. I get the feeling that most of you are missing your best friend, because I see in our word cloud that school is the biggest one. And school is usually where our best friends are. So this is great. All right. So if you printed out the worksheets, you've probably already figured out that some of these things match. So if you want to take some notes on that, that's fine. And if you haven't printed it out or you can't print it out, don't worry. A regular piece of paper is fine, and we'll go back and review all of this. Oh, Ren has a special memory of going to Dunkin' Donuts with her grandparents. Yum. I wouldn't mind having a donut right now myself. Great. So we've got a special person. We've got a special memory. We've got a special place. So we've got all these building blocks that we're going to use to build our aria later today. Now, when you think of this person, we're going to do another word cloud. When you think of this person, what feeling do you have? And you might have more than one. I certainly do when I think about my favorite loved one. So this next Menti, what feelings do you have? And I have so many feelings about Joanna and Severin. First of all, I miss them, obviously, but I love them with all my heart. And I'm frustrated that we can't be together. And I'm happy when I think about them and happy memories, but I also and I'm happy when I think about the things that we are going to do together in the future when we can be together again. I'm a little sad when I think about them because we're separated. There's so many different ways that you can feel, and you can feel things at the same time too. What do we have here? We have love, joy, happiness, sadness. I get that. Bored. Yep. You know what? It can be really, really boring when you're not with your best friends. That is difficult. Elation. What a great word. Oh my gosh. These are so great, you guys. Happy, joy, love, fun, and a little bit of sadness. I agree with all of that. I feel all of those same things. These are strong feelings. These are strong, really important feelings that you guys are having. So we're going to move now from our mentees, and in just a few minutes, we're going to pop into a PowerPoint, and I'm going to show you a few things, but I'm going to set that up for you first. So when you're in a play, especially when you're in a Shakespearean play, which very often is written in a poetic form. It's not always in poetry, but most of it is in poetry. something happens when we get to a really big, important feeling, like the ones that we've just been talking about. And I'm going to go ahead and let's share the PowerPoint. Let's go ahead and start the PowerPoint.
Hi, Camp Counselor Annalisa.
What, you can't find it?
I just need you just need to share it on your screen. Your
oh,
there it is. We're all
yeah.
good. It all clicked
Okay.
in. Hi, everybody.
Cool.
I guess I really just wanted to say hi to everybody.
Hi, Dan. Dan is the greatest. If any of you ever saw Spider-Man and you heard Ned talking about, I want to be the guy in the chair, Dan is the guy in the chair. Woo, right. There he goes. Right. Okay, so we're going to take a look at that PowerPoint. And I got to share my screen. There it is. Okay, so we've done all this discussion. We've done all this building. So are you ready to love? So I want to talk to you a little bit about who are Romeo and Juliet. And you can see there's our Met Opera, Romeo and Juliet, up there in the upper right-hand corner. Who are they? Well, were they real people? Are they just made-up people? There is a long, long history of stories about Romeo and Juliet and stories that are the building blocks that helped us to get to Romeo and Juliet. And they go back literally thousands of years. So one of the first people that dealt with the themes of, or the first people that we know of, that dealt with the themes of lovers who were separated for some reason, boyfriend, girlfriend, whomever, was Ovid. And he lived in ancient Rome. He wrote an epic poem, which means a really big, really long, formal poem about two characters named Pyramus and Thisbe. Interestingly enough, Shakespeare uses these characters in a different play, a comedy of Midsummer Night's Dream, for people to do a play inside the play. And even though it's a tragedy, the actors in that play are really bad and they turn it into a comedy. So Pyramus and Thisbe has had a big impact for thousands of years. And as I said, he was from ancient Rome. Rome was all over the Western Hemisphere for a really long time, but I've got him sitting in Italy. The capital of Italy is Rome, and Rome is, so that I thought it would be a good place to put him in there, even though Rome spread out all over this part of the world, all around here. So that was Ovid. He started us with Pyramus and Thisbe. Next, we had Dante, and this was thousands of years later, very famous Italian poet. He also wrote an epic poem called The Divine Comedy and was talking about two warring Italian families named Montague and Capulet. Now, obviously, Shakespeare probably had read The Divine Comedy because you're not going to just uniquely pull these two names out of thin air. So you can see that this also is a building block that helped Shakespeare build the characters of Romeo and Juliet, Romeo Montague and Juliet Capulet. He also was from Italy. Next up, Masuccio Salernitano, another Italian. So he wrote a story called Mariotto and Gianozza. Here's the shift, though. He claimed that these were real people, real lovers, and that this happened in his own lifetime. But the story was very much the same. Again, lovers that were separated by families who hated each other, and then they ended up dying. Very sad. Late 1400s, sometime after Dante. And who knows, because these things are universal experiences, it is possible that these things could have been happening to different sets of people. And we're going to go ahead and put him right there in Italy too. Now, wow, it's all in Italy. It's all in the same place. Why isn't this spreading around? Well, it wasn't until the middle of the previous millennium that we had a thing called a printing press. It wasn't, I think, until the 1400s. So really, there wasn't a way to share stories unless you heard them by ear, by someone who came and traveled and told you about it. And even when there was the ability to print, books were a very precious commodity. They were very expensive. So people weren't going to spread around books and stories as easily as we do today. So right now, we see that this story is very much still, after 1400 years, still sitting there pretty much in the same region that we now call Italy. Oops, end the show here. Next, we have Luigi da Porto. And in the late 1500s, early 1500s, about 500 years later, he first named this story. He changed the names to Giulietta e Romeo. And you can see that that's very much like Romeo and Juliet. And he also in Italy. Who's next? Matteo Bandello. So here he is. He publishes his version of the story of Romeo and Juliet in a big collection of stories that he wrote. And that was in the mid 1550s. So not too much after the previous guy. And now we're really getting close to the recognizable roots of our opera today. He also, guess where? Italy, there he is. So what happens next? Aha! Now we're about 100 years after the printing press has started. So communication is building. Stuff is happening. And this man named Pierre, I don't even know if I can say this, Boistuau, let's just call him Pierre. Pierre translates Bandello's Giulietta e Romeo into French. And so the story of Romeo and Juliet moves from Italy to France. What do you think happens next? Arthur Brooke, an Englishman, he bases an English poem about Romeus and Juliet on the French translation. And you can see here, he also sources another English writer, Chaucer, way back from the 1300s to spice things up. So you can see here that much like our pandemic, great art is also contagious, and it spreads and people catch it and they do things with it. And so here, when he had stolen from a little bit from Chaucer to make his version of the story, Chaucer himself, also an English writer, had borrowed from another ancient Greek work. And so we have roots that go back to thousands and thousands of years ago. And that was, oh golly. So we have Greece, we have Italy, we have France, we have England. And that brings us to where we are today. So right now you can see we're looking at England and we're looking at France, because next, after Arthur Brooke in England, that is where Shakespeare wrote the play Romeo and Juliet based on that poem. And while we have all these different versions, Shakespeare's was the most famous version of Romeo and Juliet. And since he wrote that in like the 1590s, here we are, it's the 2000s, it's 2020. So we're 500 years or 400 years into the future, and we're still doing plays based on William Shakespeare's play. Why would we do that? Why is it still important to us? Why do we still care? Because these stories are universal and they mean something to us. It resonates with us that these people are separated and can't be together. So here's William Shakespeare. He writes this great play and it catches fire. More inspiration. Years later, it goes back over the other direction, travels back south to France, and a couple hundred years into the future to Charles Gounod, who writes the very opera that we are talking about and celebrating today, Romeo et Juliet. And it had its first performance in Paris in 1867. And now here we are, 150 years later, roughly, and we're still talking about it in the modern world. So Shakespeare through the ages has had plays and productions and movies once we moved into the 20th century. And of course, opera productions have been happening around the world ever since the play was first produced over 100 years ago. So we're going to move away just briefly from the PowerPoint now that we've sort of given you the history of how these things came to be and why these things are important to us. I think we can move away from the screen sharing. Perfect. Okay. And is that what I wanted to do? Got to follow my own script here. Oh, my bad. Dan, man in the chair, could you bring back the screen sharing for me? Okay, great. So, right before we got started on the history, I talked to you guys just briefly about what happens in a Shakespeare play when you have a really strong feeling or an important thought that you want to share. And we're going to go into our next screen. And what happens is we get something called a monologue. And one of the most famous monologues in all of Shakespeare's many plays is Juliet's balcony speech. Now, what does monologue mean? I'm going to take a look at the word monologue really briefly. And monologue means, well, mono means one. And then the part of the word monologue, log, means speaking. So a monologue is a speech in which only one person is speaking. You may have heard the term dialogue. That means two people are talking to each other. So what are the characteristics of a monologue? Well, first of all, it's solo, like we just said. It's one speaking. But then it has a strong emotion or thought, which we've talked about. And here's something special. It often seems to stand outside the action of the overall play that it's in. It seems to stop time as we get a glimpse into the character's innermost thoughts and feelings. What you may find is that words reoccur, or words that sound the same or relate to each other might occur again and again. It'll be repeated, and we call that a theme. A really good monologue that's driving home a specific thought or feeling or idea is going to use words and imagery that relate to that, so it enhances our experience of that idea. Something else that happens in Shakespeare's monologues is rhythm. Shakespeare wrote in a very specific way, and he had many different reasons for doing it, but he wrote in the rhythm would go ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. And it would just do that over and over. And sometimes he'd break out of it and just talk like a normal person. But for the most part, that rhythm was always there. And then finally, sometimes he rhymed and sometimes he didn't. So now that you know what are some of the most basic elements of a monologue, we are actually going to listen now to a wonderful monologue by an actress named Juliet Kleinsteiber. She is a member of the Titan Theater Company here in New York City. And I asked her if she would do Juliet's balcony speech for us. And she very, very kindly agreed to do that. So we're going to watch Julia now doing Juliet's balcony speech to Romeo.
Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo? Deny thy father and refuse thy name. Or, if thou wilt not, be but sworn my love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet. 'Tis but thy name that is my enemy. Thou art thyself, though not a Montague. What's Montague? It is nor hand, nor foot, nor arm, nor face, nor any other part belonging to a man. Oh, be some other name. What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. So Romeo would, were he not Romeo called, retain that dear perfection which he owes without that title. Romeo, doff thy name, and for that name which is no part of thee, take all myself.
Okay, so thank you, Julia. That was beautiful. Oh my gosh, I can't not smile when I watch her do that. So that brings us to our next mentee, which is a word cloud again. And take a minute to think about the emotions that you saw her experience, and or the emotions that you yourself may have experienced while you were watching her. Oh, suspiciousness, interesting, disturbingness, love, longing. Bravissima. I agree, Mariam. Yes, absolutely. Bravissima, Julia. Wonder, Coloratura. Oh, I like that. That's loveliness. Accent. Hope. Hope. I love that one. Oh, somebody put a heart in there. Yay. I love the heart. That's wonderful. She was surprised. Yeah, she was surprised. She surprised herself, didn't she? She was having these thoughts and she was experiencing her emotions and discovering them for herself, because this feeling of love that she has is new. So I love that somebody put in the word surprise. Oh gosh, these are all wonderful, wonderful words. But you can see here in our word cloud that we have ones that are popping up more than others. We have love, we have longing, and a little bit of sadness. Yeah, that's great. Great work, you guys. So I'm going to take us back now to the shared screen because I want to take a look at the actual words in this monologue. So here are the words that she said. Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo? Lots and lots of words here. Did anyone notice the types of words that you got repeated and repeated? I'm going to let you take a look at this really quick. And then we're going to switch back to the next Mentee. And I want you to share with me any names or repeated words or anything that you see that's a theme or a repetition in here. So share with me themes and repeated words. The word name, the names of specific people, love and rebellion. Aha. Look at that. Oh my gosh, this is great. You guys are fantastic. The most repeated words and phrases that use names of specific people, love, rebellion. Interesting. Good, good, good. Yes, I see people are still weighing in here. Great. Great. This is fantastic. I'm going to toggle back now to share my screen, and we're going to talk about these results. You guys were listening well. I should have set that up a little better and asked you to listen before I played the video clip, but you guys were on it. You heard everything. So here we are. We're back looking at this speech, and I'm just going to highlight really quickly. Look how many times in this speech Juliet says either the name of Romeo or the name of her family or his family. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. Now, those are all specific names. What about the concept of a name? Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 times. So when you put that all together, 7 and 9, that's 16. That's like at least once per line in here. I think I see a theme emerging, don't you? Okay. Now, there's something else, and we talked about this a little bit before we watched the video, but there's something else that's happening in these words as well, and that's the rhythm. So you see here, O Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo? Deny thy father and refuse thy name. Or if thou wilt not be but sworn my love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet. Now, a good actor will not do what I just did and do the rhymey and the bouncy and the sing-song, but I wanted to emphasize it for you because here it is. And almost all of Shakespeare's work has this rhythm built in. And of course, that's one of the things that makes it so adaptable to a song, because we all know songs have rhythm. They have a beat, they have a time signature. Now, in Shakespeare, we call these, it's called iambic pentameter. And iamb is a unit of rhythm that goes ba-dum. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in each line. It goes ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. So there's iambic, there are iambs, and there's 5 of them pentameter. But there's all different ways that you can have rhymes. In France, for example, in their classical form of theater, they have something called an Alexandrine couplet that, interestingly enough, uses an iamb as well. It goes da-dum, but instead of having 5, they have 6. So it goes ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. Just another kind of rhythm, or it can be translated into a time signature. And that's all going to tie into how we build our aria. And finally, I wanted to let you know about rhyme. So while this has beats like a poem, there aren't any rhymes in this one. But sometimes when Shakespeare had a really important point to make, he would actually add a rhyme scheme so that you would see, you could have plain speech, which was usually done by comedic characters or common characters. And then you would have rhythmic speech that was done for a higher class or a more serious character or a speech. But then when something was extra, super important, he would add rhyme to it, which basically, if you got rhyme and you've got rhythm, the only thing that makes it different from a song is that you don't yet have music. And that's where we're going to go next. So let's talk about the aria and how it is structured. So there are lots of different kinds of arias, so many different kinds. But we're not going to go through all of those today. We're going to keep it really, really basic. So there's a kind of aria that's called arioso, which actually mixes singing and sometimes speaking. There's a cavatina, which is what we're going to look at today. And it's a short, usually slow aria with a repeating section. And then there's other kinds that are way more formal, like an aria da capo, which has an ABA format, and there's some structural changes, there's key changes, there's repetition, but we're going to keep it really, really basic today. So what are some of the elements in an aria? Just like when Shakespeare had a really important thought or emotion that he wanted a character to share, he would give them a monologue. When you're in an opera, and a character has a really big thought or emotion that they want to share, they get an aria, which has a solo, just like a monologue, has a strong emotion or thought. And again, it often stands outside the action of the performance. It seems to stop time while we delve into this emotion. An emotion or thought we have in the blink of an eye. But on stage, we expand it, we freeze time and let something build and expand. Just as in a monologue, an aria is going to have themes or repeated phrases. And of course, here's the piece that's missing from Shakespeare. It has music, which can happen in two ways. It can be vocal music. It can be sung, because sometimes an aria can be sung without the accompaniment of the orchestra. So you can have vocal or instrumental music. And sometimes songs rhyme and sometimes they don't. In opera, as you know, there are times when we have the recitative and it doesn't rhyme. It's like talking, but with music. So just as we took a look at Julia's version of Juliet's balcony speech, we're now going to take a quick look at a video of Romeo's song, his aria to Juliet, just before she has that speech. Okay, we're going to pop back to the presentation, and I do not speak French, so it was hard for me to be able to listen and capture the words. But I'm going to go ahead and put the words up for you. And we've got them in both French and English side by side. And just like we did with Juliet, we're going to highlight really quickly. Here are some thematic words. You can say, ah, lève-toi, ah, arise, O sun. We see arise, 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 lève-toi, lève-toi. But also for imagery, we have images that relate to light, things shining, stars, sun, the firmament. And of course, his whole song is about him being below her and looking up, and she is going to be his star and his sun. And that feeling of looking up and wanting to bask in the glow of the person that you love is what he's relating to the idea of the sun or the stars. And of course, the sun rises. So you can see how between the thematic imagery and the repetition of the word arise, we get a very specific vision and sort of a metaphor for how he views his loved one that he can't be with. Okay, so now we are ready to get started on our activity. And this is where the worksheets come in, or just grab a piece of paper and a pen and you can take notes. So I will say, this is a question that we got early last week from Marius Lavoie. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But Marius was an early bird, and he got in here. He was asking us questions before the week even started. And he says, like, wait, so we're actually going to compose an aria from the brain? And my answer, Marius, is yes, we are. It's going to be pretty basic, but it can be as fancy as you want to make it. But we're going to stick to these basic elements that we've just talked about. And then you can elaborate or not from there. So let's get started. Monologue versus aria. We'll review really quickly. You're going to be doing it as a solo. It's going to have a strong emotion or thought that can be happy or sad or longing or any of those wonderful things we talked about. It's something that's going to seem to stop time, right? This is a big moment. We're taking that instant feeling and turning it into an event. We want to look for things maybe to use repeatedly, words, specific words or specific images that help us build a world for our audience that's listening. It's going to have a rhythm. It's going to have music. It can be vocal and or instrumental, and I'll talk with you about how you can incorporate those elements. And it can rhyme or not. It's entirely up to you. So you answered all of those poll questions before, all of those Menti questions. And now here is our worksheet. And I want you to think back to the things that you said. And in this first column over here, and if you don't have the worksheet printed out, you can just sketch this out really quickly on a blank piece of paper. But what I'm going to ask you to do in this first column is just jot some notes, just really basic information. What do you call your loved one? Who are they to you? What are some words that describe your loved one? All those things that we've been talking about. Just some brief notes in here. And then this one down here at the very bottom, this one we didn't really do because it's more, it was a little more involved, but we can do it here. Think forward into the future. How you would like to see your loved one. Where will you see them? Romeo sees Juliet up on the balcony. Where will you be? What's the first thing you want to do when you see that person? What's the first thing that you want to say? And while you're working on this, I will share a couple of my thoughts just so that you can see how that works. Buttery Barmaids, that's the name of my band. So when I was talking to you before about the word buttery, that's why the name Buttery is special for us. And actually, that phrase, the buttery barmaid, well, yes, buttery bar. Buttery bar comes from Shakespeare as well. So who are they to you? They're like my bandmates and my best friends. They're like sisters. There's some words that I describe them with, favorite memories. We've all talked about all of these things together, Central Park. And then the places that I want to see them again, we're going to be in the park. We're going to hug each other for 10 minutes to make up for lost time. And we're not going to say anything at first. All we're going to do, we're going to sing our favorite song together. So I want to give you a moment to jot down those ideas and then explain what's going to happen over here, right? So you're writing down or you're making your own chart, taking some notes, and these are going to be the seeds for your monologue. These are the ideas that you want to embrace. And then we're going to turn these ideas, these words, into sentences. And then hopefully, maybe if you decide to rhyme, the sentences into a poem. So I started out here with just making some notes for myself about, okay, if I love getting ready before a performance, what are some specific things that I love about getting ready? This is just to get my ideas out there. Maybe something will spark and I'll want to write about it. So I love it when we stand in a line to lace each other's corsets. I like it when we share things. We usually have really yummy drinks and eats before we go to a show. So those are all things that I really love. But that is just, those are just some notes. But when I started doing that in some other areas, things started popping up for me. A barmaid isn't buttery when she is all alone. The music has no melody when she is on her own. So there's 3 buttery barmaids, but when you're by yourself, you can't be a band. You're sad and you're by yourself. So we'll go through some more of these, but I want to give you a couple of minutes to think and make notes. And while we do that, Dan's going to play us some inspirational music. Perfect. Okay, hopefully you've had a little bit of time to get a couple of ideas down. And I'm just going to share a few more of my own. And obviously, I've had a little more time to work on this than you guys. So do not worry about it if you haven't got everything you want down yet, because you've got the next few days to put this together. So let's see. Here is what I was thinking about the place that I loved. I came up with some lines here. And then when I was thinking about how I wanted to see my loved ones again, this one, probably because it was the strongest feeling I had, I got really inspired and I went kind of crazy. So this is, after you've had some time to work on it, what your worksheet might look like. You're going to have some notes. You might have some little sentences. You might have some rhyming sentences. You might not. Whatever you've got is exactly right. It's perfect just as it is, because we don't have to rhyme. We don't even have to have rhythm. We can just speak words to music or sing words. And if they're expressing an emotion and they're a solo, that's going to be our aria. So now I want to give you some examples of, okay, if we did this, it could be just a monologue. That's fine. That's great. It's a monologue without music. But how do we add music? Well, there's a couple of different ways we can do that. We can sing the words a cappella, just sing however you want. You can make up your own tune, or you can use a tune that already exists that seems to match the beat. You can also, if you play an instrument, you can play for yourself while you sing or while you speak, or you can use recorded music, and you can either sing with that recorded music, or you can play that music behind you, just like we had music behind us right now, and you can speak while the music is happening. And that can be an aria too. Now, what's that going to look like? I actually pulled up my ukulele because I wanted to give you an idea of how you can take some tunes that you already know and apply them to what's going on. So a barmaid isn't buttery when she is all alone. Okay, so I've got, that's an 8 count. So I'm going to want to do something that's like in 4/4 time. There's a song called The Yellow Rose of Texas that's actually quite famous for being very adaptable to poems that are in this rhythm, which is a very common rhythm. So I'm just goofing around here. Here we go. A barmaid isn't buttery when she is all alone. The music has no melody when she is on her own. Right? So that is a tune from somebody else. Now, let's see. I think it'll work on the favorite memory too. Let's see. No, not that one. Two of us met one shady day. Two of us met one summer's day on a shady, lovely lawn. One of us sang and played the uke, the other's voice was gone. But oh, so soon two sang and played, the fun was more than double. And not much later a third came in and things began to bubble. Now, that's really silly. And it's also a really happy song. Now, if any of you were watching Don Pasquale a couple of weeks ago, you might have remembered that camp counselor Cordelia had a Menti question, I think it was a Menti question, about making sure that the music matched the action, right? So we have this happy little tune, but that barmaid isn't buttery when she is all alone. That's kind of sad, right? So when I was playing that tune just to kind of get warmed up, I'm like, I don't really think that bouncy, happy sound is really right for that text. Let me see if I can find some music that's a little bit sadder. Maybe it's slower, maybe it's in a minor key. And I borrowed a tune from a song that my friend Severin wrote. Barmaid isn't buttery when she is all alone. Music has no melody when she is on her own. So that's much sadder and much slower. Maybe it fits better. Two of us met one summer's day on a lovely shady lawn. So you can use any kind of music that you want for that. Now, or if you are so inspired, whoopsie, I got to go back. How do I do that? Yikes. Dan, can you take me back? I don't know if I can. Hold on. Let me see. Wow, that's crazy. No, go back. I want to go back. Bummer, bummer, bummer. Let's see.
Well, while you do that, I'm going to bust in with a joke o'clock.
Oh, that is perfect. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh my gosh, this lesson has everything. Poetry, singing, ukulele, everything. Okay, it's joke o'clock, everybody. Put your joke hats on. Let's do this. Okay, let's see. Who do we have here? We had so many good jokes submitted today. All right, this is from the one and only Arias of Prince Edward Island, Canada. What was the first thing that came to mind for Shakespeare when he decided to write a love story? Annalisa, do you know? What was the first thing Shakespeare decided when he said, I'm going to write a love story?
I have no idea.
I don't either. Okay. Everybody dies.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
Well done.
Marius.
We are all set to move back.
Oh, great. Okay, wait, I have one more joke. Do you mind?
Oh, goody.
Good. All right. This is from Juliet, so we had to. Juliet in Hartsdale, New York says, did you know that Shakespeare once made a show about puns? It was a play on words. Oh,
Oh,
all
very
right. Those are
nice.
some
Well done,
truly
Julia.
corny jokes. All right.
Okay, so now we are back. And if you are so inspired, you could actually write your own tune. Now, this little group here, the Someday Soon I'll See You Off the Wheel, this actually ended up being more in a waltz tempo, and like a 3/3 instead of a 4/4. So I had to just pick something totally different. And I couldn't find anything, so I just noodled around and like came up with something that's sort of based on like an old, almost like an old vaudeville style song. Someday soon I'll see y'all for real and not on a video screen. Someday soon I'll hug y'all so tight there won't be any light in between. We'll be on our special buttery lawn in the center of Central Park. And we'll laugh and we'll sing and we'll cry and we'll hug. And we won't leave till well after dark. We'll sing tips of your toes and the road trip song. And maybe Jolene too. It will be a great day, such a buttery day. On the day when I get to hug you. All right, so that is like super silly, but the barmaids are silly. So I know that when I play this for them, they're going to be really happy and they're going to get how much I love them and how I miss them. And that brings us to you and what you can do with your aria when you are done. Okay, we're going to move on. Now, not everybody feels comfortable speaking or singing or playing music. So if you don't want to do any of those things, here is an option. You can make a visual aria for someone. You can make essentially like a scrapbook or a collage, and you can do it with real items, or you can do it with PowerPoint or Google Slides, and you can make a digital visual aria. And right now you can see I'm pulling up pictures. So instead of word images, I'm using literal images, and I'm throwing some words in there too that might highlight the themes that I have: love, sports, friends, hugs, family, being together. And if I really wanted to make an aria out of it, I could play music behind it. And once I had that file, I could share that, not just with us, and we hope you'll do that, but you can share it with the loved one that you're missing too. And finally, I wanted to give you guys another option, because Romeo and Juliet have special love for one specific person, right? You can see in the monologue and in the cavatina, Romeo is expressing his love for one special person, Juliet. But I wanted to give you an option for this activity, and that is to consider love for all humans, which is another theme that appears in Romeo and Juliet. And actually, they're very much interconnected, because at the top of the play, the prince comes in and he says, listen, you've got to stop fighting with each other. Something bad is going to happen. You're going to regret it. And then, of course, Romeo and Juliet fall in love with each other, even though they're from warring families. And if this had been a happy comedy, then they would have gotten married and everybody would have lived and everybody would have been happy and the families wouldn't be warring anymore. And in fact, some people around the 1800s were so upset by the fact that all these horrible things happened to Romeo and Juliet that they rewrote it and made happy endings, which I think is hilarious. But hey, you do you, right? So we have this warning that says, hey, listen, hating other people is not a good plan. It's not going to go well for any of us. And we also see that echoed by the character of the Duke in the opera. And so you can see here, he's saying, your hatred, fertile, is going to maintain discord and fear in the city. My blood and theirs will be flowing. Same thing that he says over here. See what a scourge is laid upon your hate. Heaven finds means to kill your joys with love, meaning that Romeo and Juliet died because of love, and all are punished. So while we can have love for just one person, we can also have love for all of humankind. So you may want to write an aria about that. And so our second worksheet that's available to you, and I'm just showing this to you, we're not going to go through it piece by piece, but this is an option for you. If you want to talk about love for all of humanity or a specific group of people, just as we've been experiencing the pandemic all around the world for the last few months, last 3-4 months at least, we have many places in the world that are undergoing a lot of social strife and a need for social justice, and people are combating different kinds of hatred. And this is a way that we can show our love. This wonderful man named Cornel West, an African-American philosopher, he's very famous for this one line: justice is what love looks like in public. And that's exactly what the Duke or the Prince were doing when he spoke out. He called everybody out in public and he said, hey, love one another, or it's not going to go well. So you've got 2 options for subject matter for your aria, and you've got all kinds of options for how you're going to present it. So I'm going to come out of sharing the screen. And we're going to wrap up. I'm sorry I kept you guys a little bit long today, but I'm really excited to see what you all come up with whether it's a monologue or an aria, whether it's spoken or it's sung, whether it's visual, whether it's about love for one person or love for a larger group of people. We can't wait to see your images and your videos. And if you have questions in the coming days, we're going to be available on Wednesday and Thursday to answer any questions that you might have. And of course, you can post questions in Google Classroom as well. But we are here to support you and to help you express these feelings that you have for people that you love. And you're going to be able to watch the opera tomorrow, the whole thing, if you want to, which might be really, really inspiring. Think, is there anything else we have to say today? Oh, you know something? I think my dog wants to come and say goodbye to all of you. He's standing right here and he's waiting. His name is Butters, and he loves all of you, and he wants to say, well done. You guys did such a good job. Look at that, Butters. Did they do a good job? You guys did great. It was wonderful. Say thumbs up, Butters. He's giving you a high five right there. Oh, yes. Thanks, everybody, so much. Let us know if you have questions. And I think that's it for today.